All right, so we'll just sing a song. Most of you are familiar. And then we will read a verse from the Bhagavad Gita. And have a discussion. And then afterwards there'll be a second kirtan, singing, a shorter one. Or maybe longer one, I don't know. And then they'll serve the dinner. So Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari So if everybody could please repeat after me. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. All right, so we are reading we'll read a verse and a commentary from Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, and we're reading from Chapter 2, Contents of the Gita, Summarized, Text 14. So I'll just read the Sanskrit and then English. Matra sparshastu konteya shitoshna sukadukada agama paino nityas tamstatikshas bharata. Translation. O son of Kunti, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress, and their disappearance in due course are like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense perception, O sign of Bharat, and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. Purport. In the proper discharge of duty, one has to learn to tolerate non-permanent appearances and disappearances of happiness and distress. According to Vedic injunction, one has to take his bath early in the morning, even during the month of Magh, January, February. It's very cold at that time, but in spite of that, a man who abides by the religious principles does not hesitate to take his bath. So this particular verse is saying that there's two things which we're all familiar with. Happiness, right? We all have a sense of happiness. And distress or pain. Everybody's familiar with that. Anyone who's been around for a while, even if they haven't been around for a while, everybody's familiar with that. So we see that this what Krishna is saying here is the non-permanent appearance of happiness means it comes, happiness comes, and then later down the road, distress comes. It's just like the appearance and disappearance of the summer and winter seasons. So at one particular point, it's going to get really hot, especially if you're in Tucson or Phoenix, right? Or Las Vegas. I remember I drove out there during the summer one time, and it was 108 degrees when I arrived. That's very hot. But in due course of time, that changes, and it becomes winter. Of course, I don't think Tucson exactly has a winter, although I heard it was snowing recently. Interesting enough, right? You wouldn't think it's snow in Arizona, but the winter becomes colder. So, in other words, these things are coming and going, happiness and distress. And Krishna is saying that they arise from sense perception. So when it's very hot, summertime, it's coming soon, right? Everybody, okay, great, let's go to the ocean, right? Or let's jump in the pool or whatever. And when it's really cold, you don't see anybody down there, unless they're surfers, right? Any surfers here? Or vacationers, yeah. Any surfers here? No, okay. Our teacher would call the surfers sufferers. They're out there, So here it's mentioned in the purport, Om Gyanatibidandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshulan Malitamina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him. So it's mentioned in the purport here that when it is cold, January, February, and even now, depends where you go, but especially I guess it's become a little bit more westernized, but traditionally in India, there was no real, you could say, easy hot water. Means you just like now here we just turn on the faucet that has H on it and hot water comes out. But if you wanted to get hot water traditionally in India, you'd have to heat it up, right? So most people, they wouldn't bother with that. They just take a cold, bath, shower, right? Early in the morning. So now during the summer, that's very pleasant. Okay, great, right? Cold water. But here, Srila Prabhupada's making the point in the purport that a person who acts according to spiritual principles, it doesn't matter if it's cold in the morning and they have cold water, they'll just bathe. It doesn't matter. In other words, they perform their duty. Similarly, Srila Prabhupada continues with the purport, it's very cold. Similarly, a woman does not hesitate to cook in the kitchen in months of May and June, so when it's very hot. Maybe nowadays people have, I guess, with the systems in their house, air conditioning systems, I guess cold air will come to the kitchen, obviously. But still, I don't think you could really avoid the heat of the kitchen, right? Can't really avoid it. The oven and everything. They have a saying, right? What's that saying? Anybody know? Yeah. Yeah, if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen, right? But here it's, so the hottest part of the summer season, they still cook. One has to execute his duty in spite of climatic inconveniences. Similarly, to fight is the religious principles of the Kshatriyas, and although one has to fight with some friend or relative, one should not deviate from his prescribed duty. One has to follow the prescribed rules and regulations of religious principles in order to rise up to the platform of knowledge, because by knowledge and devotion only can one liberate himself from the clutches of Maya, illusion. The two different names of address given to Arjuna are significant. To address him as Kaunteya signifies his great blood relations from his mother's side. And to address him as Bharat signifies his greatness from his father's side. From both sides, he is supposed to have a great heritage. A great heritage brings responsibility in the matter of proper discharge of duties. Therefore, he cannot avoid fighting. So here, Krishna is encouraging Arjuna to fight. Now, many people throughout the world, India and other places throughout the world, they accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or God. So just as within the Christian tradition, or the Abrahamic religions, they have the Quran, they have the Bible, mostly those. You have the Torah also. So people accept these as scriptures by which they're to abide by, or which they're supposed to follow, coming from God. So similarly, this Bhagavad Gita, it is the song of God, or it's the song of Krishna. And it really is a song. Because actually every verse is it's a song. Nasato vidyate bhavo, na bhavo vidyate sataha, ubayor apidrashtontas tvanayos tattvadarshibhi. So the whole book is like that, it's singing. So here, in this particular book, or this particular conversation between Krishna and Arjuna, Krishna is encouraging Arjuna to fight. Now, someone may say, well, why is he doing that? How is that spiritual? Why would Krishna, or why would God say, hey, you fight? That doesn't sound very spiritual, right? Generally, when we think of fighting, we think, oh, that's really worldly, or that's really mundane, or that's not good, right? To fight. Like if there's fighting between husband and wife, right? We think, oh, that's not so good, right? Or if there's fighting between brother and sister, or fighting between friends, we think, oh, that's terrible, right? And generally it is, because the outcome is not pretty. Outcome is something else. So we say, why is Krishna encouraging Arjuna to fight? How does that make any sense? And the basic idea is that at a particular time, long time ago, there was a camp, you could say, of evil people. Now, of course, when you talk about evil people, you could say who is absolutely good, right? And you could say who is absolutely evil. Usually there's some mixture going on. Or who's good and who's bad. Usually there's a mixture. But this camp, you could say on the evil side, they were pretty much all bad. Well, they had some good elements to them, but allowing them to lead, to continue to take over the world, you could say, would be really bad for everybody. It would just be a complete disaster. Just like in this particular country, right? America, land of the free, home of the brave. We Americans live those I mean, it's another thing to identify as American, but whatever. Prabhupada would sometimes speak this way, but Americans, they're happy, more or less. And how, well, I don't know, I guess that's a big topic. How many people are happy how America's going, but they're happy with certain, you could say, freedom they have in America. They're happy that some people do not come into the White House, means terrorists, come into the White House and just take over. I actually saw something some time ago. Sometimes I'm not into politics, by the way, but somebody sent me something, and it was some country. Anyways, I forgot, and it doesn't matter at this particular point what country it was, but a bunch of terrorists just literally came into the main, you could say, quarters of the prime minister of that particular country, and just completely took over. They took pictures of it. You know, you had all those guys there with their guns and stuff, and the guy fled the country. The ruler, right? So in other words, people of a particular country, they expect their freedom. They love their freedom to say this, to say that, to do this, to do that, right? And certain countries in the world, in comparison to America, actually lack freedom in many ways. For example, I was in Ankara, Turkey, the capital there. We have some devotees there, so I was visiting them, trying to, So there, the devotee was telling me that if anybody in the country talks bad about the president there, actually, first of all, they don't really do that. And if they do, their whole life is ruined practically. They can't get a job, they can't get this, they can't get that. And sometimes they just go to jail, and then no one really knows and how long they're going to be there and all this type of stuff. So people just don't do it. Comparison to this country. I mean, that's what all news, you got one side or whatever side's talking about this politician, that politician. It's a huge, so people have that freedom and they take advantage of it. But whatever the case is, whatever type of freedom you want to think about, people appreciate it. So Krishna was telling Arjuna that, okay, fight this evil side, because if you don't, then this evil side, this corrupt side will take over, and they're really going to spoil things, and people are going to be very unhappy. So he was saying you should fight. Now the problem is that, or you could say one of the issues that Arjuna was dealing with, is that on this evil side there was actually some family members. So I was like, talk about a dramatic scene. It's like, yeah, you got to fight that side, but by the way, there's family members there, and you're like, oh. And he actually drops his bow, and it's a whole thing, and eventually he does fight for the greater good. Now, of course, this is a rare circumstance, very rare. And rare means rare, you don't have to say very, but it's a rare circumstance, and most will not have to deal with anything even close to it. But Krishna is mentioning here in this particular verse and purport that at least in our own way, we should do our duties. We all have duties, right? As mothers, as fathers, as brothers, as sisters, as on and on and on. There's some duties there, or responsibilities. For example, one is, which is important actually, it's not considered okay, it's important. It's a basic duty. But for example, taking care of those who are one's family members who are elderly, that's actually a duty of the younger people, to take care of the older people. And why is that? Because they did the same thing for their children, right? For how many years? I don't know. 12 years? How long do you have to take care of a child for? Any parents here?
18, they say.
18 years old? Forever? Your whole life? I know the mothers always see the sons as... Yeah, so, but really like hand and foot, like cooking for them, every kind of, you have to do it for many, many years, right? So it makes sense, okay, in older years when the parents get, okay, then they take care, somehow or other, they make some arrangements. So it's like a basic duty, and there's so many of them. So Krishna's encouraging Arjuna to fight, and he's encouraging Arjuna that you have to tolerate. So there's some things in life that we just have to tolerate, like the summer and the winter seasons. We have to tolerate. We have to tolerate people, right? We have to tolerate people. That's a big one. I mean, some people have to tolerate their boss because their boss is not a nice guy, right? He may not be a nice guy. Some people have to tolerate that. Or some people have to tolerate employees, right? Like my friend was telling me, he owns a motel. You want to guess what his name is? Patel? Yes. Bharat Patel. Bharat Patel owns a motel. Anyways, a lot of Patels own motels, but so he was telling me that, he hired some, lady, and she seemed very nice, and he asked her, how do you do with people? How do you do with people and this and that, and like tolerating people? And she, oh yeah, I do well, I'm really, kind and courteous. Oh, yeah, fine. So then somebody came and, I don't know, like they were giving her a hard time about something, and she just like lost it, She just started yelling at the person, and I won't say what she said, because we're in the temple room, But she had to he had to tell the person, okay, better you don't work here, So, but as an example, if we just lose it any time, I mean, there's many times where we could just lose it, but there's a sense we have to control. We have to be tolerant. And this instruction of Krishna, it's very powerful in the sense that it's practical. Because every day we have to deal with this, more or less. Every day we're dealing with people. Every day we're dealing with certain climatic experiences. Every day we're dealing with our mind. Every day we're dealing with certain situations. So in other words, there's a need to learn how to tolerate. And that's what Krishna is saying here. So then the question is, okay, well, how do we tolerate? How do we tolerate? And we tolerate by cultivation of knowledge. We have to understand, okay, I'm not the body, right? One of my friends, he told someone, you're not the body, then anyways, whatever. So I said, well, whose body? And I forgot how the saying goes. Okay, if I'm not my body, whose body am I? Anyways, that doesn't exactly make sense to me, but so they say, I'm not the body, I'm the soul, right? So that's basic spiritual knowledge. Now, if we're the soul, that means that which is affecting the body means the climate, and also we're not the mind also. So the climate, different people, like people offending me. They say, oh, you're stupid, right? It's all right. Well, thank you very much. I agree. But if they say I'm stupid, they say, well, it's really referring to the body, right, or the mind. Or they say, the color of your eyes are very ugly. Usually people don't say that, but to people, but they might say that, or, something. But you say, well, that doesn't really matter because I'm not the body. So if we have that knowledge, that spiritual knowledge, the basic spiritual knowledge that we're not the body, then we're able to tolerate. But more than that, if we have some spiritual practice, we pray, we chant, we meditate, we call out to Krishna, or we call it to God, then this will help us develop this tolerance, which is very important. Because after all, if you see all what's going on in the world, you don't have to. It's not mandatory that you watch the news every day, but if you watch it here and there, or if you hear about it here and there, it's actually quite intense what's going on in the world, you know. And these basic things are just lack of tolerance. Or you could say misconceptions, like, hey, I want that land. And then they say, well, why do you want it? It belongs to us. Well, I want it because because I do, right? I need more resources. But this is if one's on a spiritual platform, they think, okay, that's your guys' land. I have my land, you have your land, and whatever. We don't need to fight about it. Or basis on ethnicity or religion. It's a big one. So, but if one's on the spiritual platform, then it's no problem. So this particular verse of the Bhagavad Gita, this idea of tolerance, it's very practical and important. Okay, so does anybody have any question or comment? Anything you'd like to ask or say? Feel free. Okay, we have one over here. Our local monk, brahmachari.
So you were talking about tolerance. I think one of the most difficult things to tolerate is the mind. How do you tolerate the mind?
Yeah. All right, thank you. So we're talking about tolerance and how do we tolerate the mind. Yeah, I mean, the business of the mind is accepting, this isn't accepting and rejecting, right? So there's all these types of options, just like the advertisement world, right? We're driving down the street, hey, buy this beer, right? Whatever. Or buy these type of clothes, or buy this auto insurance. Or, hey, just like I've been driving to LA for many years, we have a temple up there, and there's a particular billboard. And the same billboard every single year, they have Apple products advertised. Everybody knows Apple products. Apple products advertised. And, the latest things up there on the billboard, right? And, many people driving by there every day. So the mind's getting all this information, right? And then we're accepting it. Okay, yeah, I will buy that new iPhone. Yeah, sounds very good, right? Or I will get that auto insurance. So we're accepting or rejecting it. You think, no, I don't want an iPhone. That's what it would. I'm going to go with Samsung. Apple's overrated, and I don't really agree with the corporation. I'll just go with Samsung. Or this auto insurance is bad. I'll go with something else. So accepting and rejecting. So you could say that this could cause trouble to us because we could get overloaded. It's like all these options, like you go to the store. I actually don't like going to the store. Grocery store. I used to not mind, but I come to the conclusion I don't like it, so I don't go anymore. But one of the things that it's difficult is that there's a shopper for the temple, so I just asked them to. But one of the things with going to the grocery store, there's just so many options. It's like, it's overwhelming. You know what they used to use for toothpaste in India? It was actually a combination of toothpaste and toothbrush. You know what they would use? Yeah, neem, or what else? What else? Charcoal? Charcoal. Oh, okay. Yeah, so in terms of trees, neem or eucalyptus. Now what you do is you just get a twig, break it off the branch, and then you break it in a certain way, and you go like this, and you brush your teeth, and then you wash your mouth, and you have a tongue, whatever. So in other words, it wasn't all these options. Like you go to the grocery store, all right, what toothpaste am I going to get? All right, there's how many toothpaste here? 150? All right, which one do I want? And you read them, and okay, fluoride, no fluoride, and you spend all this time in the grocery store, right? So it's just like an overwhelming, this particular age is just overwhelming for the mind. And because of that, we may fall into this state of like anxiety, you know, okay, well, all right, I'm getting all this information. All right, well, what do I want? You know, just like a child, right? When people have children, they're watching the television or they're watching internet or whatever, and then there's all these advertisements for new stuff, right? Bike, this, that, all this kind of like a, and they're like, okay, I want this, and it just like really racks up, right? And the parents thinking, okay, how am I going to buy all this stuff for Christmas or their birthday or whatever? Of course, if you have one child, it's easier, but anyways, maybe, depending on your works. But so similarly, our mind could be like that. You know, the mind's just getting all this information. It's like, all right, what do I want? And you just like, there's all these desires in there. Okay, this, you got like a long list of stuff. And that could cause pain to us in the sense that, all right, well, now how am I going to get it? All right, well, I got to work hard or, okay, I get it. But then like my sister, one of them, she's not here. Some of the other ones are here right now, but some of them are not. But one of them, Amanda, she paid off her car, right? BMW, whatever car, and you know, okay, great, congratulations. And as soon as she paid off her car, you know what happened? Somebody, it wasn't just a normal accident, somebody just scraped against it and just took off. They didn't say anything, no note, nothing. They just, and it was a big dent, you know. So it's like sometimes we get what we want, but then there's some problem there, right? So in this way, the mind could be like a vortex of just like angst and anxiety, and I want, but I got, and it's broken, and this and that. So it causes problems. So then you could say, well, how do we tolerate that? We become a monk. I'm just joking. No, you can become a monk, and it helps tolerate that. But then the idea is that we have some. Again, we engage in spiritual activities that will satisfy our mind. For example, chanting Hare Krishna. This is a big one here, main one. We're at the Hare Krishna temple. So main is chanting Hare Krishna, just 16 words, and that actually will satisfy the mind. Or cracking open the Gita and reading some verses. That will satisfy the mind. And then, if we become advanced in those, and we associate with spiritually minded people and so on, if we become advanced in those activities, then our mind becomes more satisfied. And we think, okay, well, I don't, all right, there's all this information, but I don't really need it, and I don't really want it, and yeah. So it has to do with satisfying the mind by spiritual knowledge, by spiritual practice. Or else it's tough. Mind's just, as Dravida Prabhu likes to say, the mind has a mind of its own. Right? Does anybody have any other, yes?
If it is true that we do not have to do what other people say, but even if other people could give us some suggestions, then if we listen to that, then if we discuss that with our family members or our friends, then how come we have to tolerate people?
I think I got more or less the essence of your question. It sounded like you you want to...
No, she's saying, how do we do that?
How do we do?
Tolerate people.
Oh, tolerate people. All right. So we went from the mind to people. Okay. All right. I understand now. All right. So one, we tolerate the mind. Now we're moving to people. Then next we'll go to natural disturbances. Okay. People... I think Radhanath Swami, he went to or who, anyway, somebody, they went to Amazon, not the company, but to the place, jungle. So then he asked the question, what's the most, ferocious, type of being that you just have most difficult one to tolerate? And you know what they said? Human. So, I mean, one thing, okay, if there's certain, you could say, social boundaries or lines that people should work within. And if people cross those lines, we distance ourselves. We just have to. Like at work, if somebody's harassing us in really inappropriate ways, okay, we go to the boss, we say, but we distance ourselves. It's not that the person's just super abusive in terms of language, let's say. Very, very critical. I had one job cutting bread. And one of the guys was like, he was at first very nice, dishwasher guy. But then later, he's kind of like, I was shocked. And I guess I was being tolerant at the time because he would just like hurl all of these like obscene, offensive comments to me, like personally. Somehow I was tolerating it. I didn't do anything. But anyways, it's not that I went to that guy and I said, hey man, I really had a good time at work with you today. You want to go out and, we'll go to the temple and we'll hang out together? And no, you have to distance oneself, right? It's not that you get closer to such people. Just like you don't get close to when you go to the San Diego Zoo, if any of you have done that here. Probably all of you, more or less. But so when you go there, you're whatever, looking at the lion or something, you don't, oh, very nice, and let me pet, the lion, and, or let me jump in there or something. It's dangerous. So you're respectful. Okay, lion's a spirit soul too, but you just distance. So we do have to distance ourselves sometimes. That's one thing. And another thing is that you were talking about advice. They have a saying, right? Everybody gives free advice. Right? You don't have to pay for it. So I asked one of my spiritual teachers about that advice. Like people give me advice all the time, and they also ask, I would say, kind of too personal of questions. What am I going to? Anyways, so I asked him, how do I deal with that? Like those of you who are familiar with the renounced order of life within the Vedic tradition, sannyas order of life. It's when a person just renounces and then becomes a more or less traveling mendicant teacher. So it's a very serious thing. And I've talked with a number of people, and like in the first 5 minutes, they're asking me, "Oh, when are you going to take sannyas?" Right? So anyways, I was asking my teacher about how do I deal with these things, because sometimes it kind of bothers me. I have a hard time tolerating it, right? Sometimes. I mean, not that big of a... So what he told me was that if somebody gives you advice, this is in the scripture also, if somebody gives you advice and it's contrary to yourself progressing spiritually, then you could just smile at that person and say, thank you very much. I appreciate your advice. And just do the opposite. And within your heart, you remain determined to keep your life how it should be going. If someone's giving you contrary advice. So that's there. It's, in other words, you don't have to get into some match about it. Oh, well, why are you giving me this advice? Or I don't agree with you. You just, oh, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'll look into that. Yeah, But then you, or as my grandmother told me one time, we were talking here. She came to the temple and we were talking, and she's from a Christian background, so she was just Grandma Ellen. So she was a little, worried what was I doing and with my life and things like that, because obviously I'm, not leading a Christian life like she would want. So she was just a little, out of all my family members, she was practically the only one who kind of had these concerns. Everyone else was okay. But so she said, but why are you worshiping a man? She was referring to Prabhupada here, the statue. Why are you worshiping him as God? And I said, we're not worshiping him as God. I said, we're not doing that at all. And actually, he said, our teacher said, Srila Prabhupada here, right, he said that if an ordinary man claims to be God, he is not God, but he is, yeah, our monk here said, DOG. So yeah, he's not claiming that, and I'm not doing that. She said, okay, fine. Now still, she didn't exactly, agree, so at the end of the conversation, she said, okay. She said, well, we can, just like she said, just like I, with my brother, Angel, she said, so with you, Brownson, that's my legal name, she said, we can agree to disagree. So yeah, you could say there's different ways of tolerating. One is just, those are some of the ways, like distancing ourselves or just agreeing with them on an external platform or just agreeing to disagree, some kind of basic human, respect, behavior. So those are some ways of tolerating. And ultimately, yeah, if we make spiritual progress, more and more spiritual progress, then it'll be easy to tolerate. It'll be easy to tolerate. It's not difficult. Does anybody have any other comment or question? Okay.
Actually, Krishna told Arjuna to fight the evil.
They want you to use a mic, so you don't have to be shy about it.
Thank you. I heard Krishna told Arjuna to fight the evil. But here, if somebody is yelling at us, isn't their evil we have to fight them?
So you're saying that Krishna told Arjuna to fight the evil side.
Yeah.
But the question is, should we be like that, like fight the evil side?
Yeah.
Should we also fight the evil side?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Yes, we should. But what does that exactly mean? It's a big topic, but... Or you could say we should try to be on the good side. Being on the good side doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be a frontline soldier on the side of good. But at least we should accept, okay, I want to be on the good side. I don't want to be on the other side. So one way you could say of fighting evil is for us to become learned in spiritual knowledge, and to be a good example of a person, and also to try to give that knowledge to others. For example, you have some friends, you have some families, so you have some family. So what you could do is you could get them Bhagavad Gitas. And this particular Bhagavad Gita as it is, you could buy them Gitas. It's not that expensive. You buy them Gitas and then you give them to them. And this one's very wonderful because it has all the purports, commentaries, and it has word by word English or Sanskrit word by word translations. And as far as I've seen, there's no Bhagavad Gita like that. Word by word English translations, right? Has anybody ever seen any word by word Sanskrit translations? You don't even see the Devanagari in most Bhagavad Gitas. And you don't even see the Roman transliteration. So we have the Devanagari, we have the Roman transliteration, we have the word by word, we have the English translation, and we have a commentary. Some may say, you sound very proud. Yeah, that's true. But it's a beautiful Bhagavad Gita. So we could get these Gitas and we could give them to friends, family, whoever. And this is a way you could say that we're counteracting the bad influences.
No, my question was like, suppose if my husband is yelling at me, at that moment I'll see him like a evil. Should I fight with him? Or I should think I'm just the soul and I'm like...
Is your husband here now?
No.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, now that your husband's here, I could answer in a different way. I'm just joking. Well, I mean...
Fighting about, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, it depends. Okay, what do you... Now, there's a story of Mahatma Gandhi. Everybody knows Mahatma Gandhi, right? Especially anyways, I think everybody knows. But he's on the bill, on the rupee notes, right? So Mahatma Gandhi and his wife had an argument. Who knows what it was about? I don't know. Something. And he said, leave. Get out. Immediately go. I don't want to see you anymore. Just don't come back. So she said, okay. And she just left. And then, 20 minutes, maybe she went and bought some vegetables or whatever she went and did. Or 20, 30 minutes later, an hour later, she came back and she came knocking. And then he opened the door. And then he said, well, I thought I told you to leave. And she said, well, I know, but I don't have anywhere else to go, and you're my husband, and we should continue. And he said, okay, come in. So, people should, husband and wife, because that's what you're asking about, they should be, they should have a good relationship with each other to the degree that, okay, there might be some fighting, there might be some quarreling. But first of all, it shouldn't be taken that seriously. It should, okay, there's some disagreements. Okay, fine. First of all, they both shouldn't be trying to lord it over each other, means trying to really, unnecessarily be too harsh with each other. But naturally, there's some disagreements. That's just human nature, right? So they should have a deep enough relationship to say, okay, well, there's some disagreements. Okay, well, that doesn't really matter so much. And then just like they give themselves some time. Okay, well, I'm taking a walk. I'm out of here. Or I'm taking a drive. And a drive doesn't mean they're taking a drive to hit the casino or something. But taking a drive means they're going to go take a drive to a park and, walk around the park or get some fresh air or whatever, or, go do some jumping jacks or I don't know what people do. And then they come back and then, okay, all right, let's move on here. Let's move on, right? And that's what it means to be like, you could say have like a friendship. Also, friends are like that. Okay, there's some disagreements. Like I have friends and I've had disagreements with them. But we just move on. So yeah, and sometimes it's actually people just need to vent. There's actually something to that, venting. Of course, it has to be done in a bit of a, best if you don't do it actually, but sometimes it's necessary There should be like a controlled vent, and with nice language, right? Venting. So that sometimes that's helpful, and then later they feel kind of like they let all the steam out. Like we have Vijay Prabhu here. He asked the first question. He goes out and distributes Prabhupada's books regularly for many, many years now, decades, giving spiritual knowledge. So I remember I heard from him or someone, but it's it was an experience that some monk tried to give someone a book, and the person just yelled at him, really venting. And then the person was just standing there and just kind of accepting it all. And all the steam kind of went out, and the monk said, "So you want to take the book?" And the guy said, yeah, sure, I'll take it. He took the book. So, because he was impressed. Actually, I heard some story in relation to tolerance. Vijay Prabhu doesn't mind, but it's for education purposes. But Vijay Prabhu here, he was out on books, distributing books, and somebody was yelling at him, pretty much, like really kind of. And then Vijay Prabhu wasn't saying anything, just kind of. And then the guy just took off. And then some other guy came to him and said, "Hey, man, that was really impressive." He said, "I want to get one of those books from you, something like that. Now that sometimes that doesn't happen. There was one case of a man, devotee, distributing books out on the street, and somebody was yelling at him, and then this devotee started yelling back. And then the guy said, "Hey, I thought you were a monk. I thought you guys were peaceful. I thought, you're supposed to be tolerant. What's going on?" And the guy said, "Well, I made a lot of progress." He said, "Previously, if you would have yelled at me like that, I would have punched you right in the face." So he made progress. So venting is sometimes necessary. Sometimes so in other words, you could allow people to vent to you. I do it often, actually.
Okay.
People vent to me. I've had people. I visited the Las Vegas temple, and somebody was venting to me. I'm going to get the details, but it went on for some hours, actually. I went to the Tucson also like that, hours. So, but I felt that, just lending an ear, and I would say some things, and, I was just trying to encourage them or whatever. So, that might not be unhealthy.
Okay.
Any last question? Okay.
Just a comment.
Or comment, yeah.
Comment and thing, just to continue on that, right? It's interesting that when we're tolerant to others, but if you look at ourselves, we are always having two personalities within. I think we are very easy forgiving of ourselves. So if we practice that, it's easy to say, I don't do that myself, but we all forgive ourselves easier than forgiving others. So could we use that tactic? So, it's tolerating others like you tolerate yourself.
Yes. Yeah, some people have a hard time tolerating themselves and the mistakes they make. But definitely most people, they expect others to forgive them. Like, hey, I'm human, To err is human. I expect you to forgive me, right? So similarly, just as we're expecting people to forgive us, right, with our shortcomings, we should extend that to others, that, okay, well, I should also forgive them. Because anger, which is a very difficult thing, can be a difficult thing to overcome. It's a binding thing. Anger is overcome by forgiveness. So we just forgive people, and then the anger's, right? But it's a bit of an art to do that. But yeah, we should, just as we're tolerant with ourselves or with, we forgive ourselves, we should forgive others. Yeah, it's a good point.
Yep.
I heard someone say that a devotee went to Srila Prabhupada and said, Prabhupada, I can't tolerate this devotee, or I can't tolerate these devotees. And Prabhupada said, you should tolerate them, just like I have to tolerate you.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yes.
Just one more thing. She asked about how do you tolerate evil, like a husband that's evil. Now sometimes the husband will beat the wife. So how do you tolerate, or how sometimes that happens. It's very common, unfortunately.
Krishnamurti said call the police.
Very good.
No one should be causing physical harm to anybody unless they're in a boxing ring or if they're in a UFC. If people have such desires, like sometimes women also, men, women, they attack people they love. There's so many stories, but if they have such aggression, it's not, it shouldn't be taken out on each other, that's for sure, especially physically, like in terms of, but it may be something that they have, and that's difficult for them to overcome. Like men, for example, men have a tendency to punch walls. You know how stupid that is? It's stupid in the sense because the only thing it does, of course you get a little aggression out, but it hurts your hand. It hurts your hand. That's why it's stupid. But so in other words, but men or whoever may have a difficult time controlling those kind of emotions when they become angry. We would say get rid of anger, then you don't have to deal with that. But if they can't get rid of anger so quickly, then they need a way to deal with that. So they need to pick up some type of, or people, whoever it is, they need to pick up some type of healthy hobby, like, jog, or if a person wants to, there's so many things they could do. But yeah, definitely, that shouldn't be tolerated. Yeah. There needs to be some change in relation to that. But yeah, that's a whole kind of topic. All right. So we have one baby here, right? What was that?
Just one baby. Just one.
Okay. One baby in one bag. Okay. And we have anyways, a variety of ages here. So now what we're all going to do is we'll just stand up, and then we'll have some more singing, and then we'll serve dinner. So, okay, thank you very much. Hare Krishna.